Welcome back to another episode of Real Talk and ELT. Hello, it's Kelly again. Today I'm going to be talking about something related to teaching in general. I think my dog is having a little dream. Related to teaching in general for people who have kind of been in the industry for a little bit and maybe feeling like they hit that plateau or something along those lines. So, listen, I know that we all have our own teaching style and we get into kind of like our teaching rhythm. Like, this is what I like to do. This is my jam. I like this. Cool. I'm super supportive of that. I love it. I think it's wonderful. Here's what I'm going to tell you though. My style of teaching was vastly improved when I started exploring more advanced teaching methods or different things. Just kind of going at it in a different way. So let me take you down memory lane. I'll tell you a little story. So after I did like my initial teacher training and stuff like that, I thought I was the bee's knees. Yeah. Like I thought I was awesome. And I was like, I know how to do this. I know how to do that. It was like that high after completing the first initial teacher training that everybody gets. And then slowly the ELT world came crashing down on me and I went back to reality again. And I was like, oh, there's so many things that I still don't know, which is also very valid. And so one thing that I started kind of zipping around and doing was looking at methodology, techniques, frameworks, things that were uncomfortable for me. It's funny, one of the questions that we get asked as tutors at like CELTA courses and stuff like that is like, what's your advice for people who are like finishing courses and things, which is like I was like, I don't know, like, what do you want to do? That's always my first like initial thought. I'm like, I don't know, what's your kind of like, what's your jam? What are you interested in? But then I, compose myself as the professional that I am. And I think to myself, what would be just kind of a super general blanket statement that is applicable to kind of this idea that I'm going to talk about? And it's the blanket statement that I usually give is don't focus on your strengths. Always focus and lean into your weaknesses because that's where you're going to have the most growth. So you know how people are like, oh, if you're really good at, I don't know, pronunciation. If you're really good at pronunciation, then you should do pronunciation. It's like, if you're really good at it, like, okay, you can do it. That's fine. But like, if you're really good at it, then what else are you neglecting that could actually help you and your students? Because I understand that teachers want to have niches and they want to be known for certain things and like, oh, this is fulano and they are the important person in this or whatever. Yeah, cool. Like, it's cool to have a specialism. I have one. Like, I love business English. Like, that's my specialism. That's the route that I typically go in. But at the same time, I know that I can't only do business English stuff. Like, I can't only focus on that, because it's limiting, and it's actually probably, if I only do that, it's probably not, I'm not going to get the growth that I want as a professional if I only do what I like doing and not do the stuff that I'm just like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I'm not super great with this. I feel like you have to lean into those things. So one of the things that people get settled in, which is okay, again, this is a good thing, is that you find your own style in teaching, that you're able to be like, okay, this is kind of how I like to run my classes. This is frameworks and staging that I'm most comfortable with. Do you know what I mean? You find your style. I'm kooky and crazy, and my style is like a little mixed, but I have, like, if you attended any of my classes with frequency, you would feel like, okay, her kind of like the podcast. I have a lot of energy. I do. I have a lot of energy, but I also love to like have a chat and but things are very casual in my class. Like I'm not a super strict stickler, like do this, do that. I like to joke, I like to have a good time. Like I'm just kind of, it should be an enjoyable process for everybody. So that's kind of the vibe of my classes. And I do have a tendency of following like similar kind of stages. Explanations tend to be very similar for me. I tend to stick to things that I feel like they work for my students. Fine. I think that that is good and you should have that. But at the same time, I also think that if you really want to have some sort of growth or to see either to validate what you're doing as truly what you think is going to be most effective and productive for your students, or to explore something that might not be comfortable but turns out it has better results with your learners than how you normally do things, I think that's a really valid avenue that people need to kind of go down and explore a little bit. So, um the whole idea is that it kind of will rejuvenate a little bit what you're doing in your classroom. Things tend to get stale, right? Just because they do. The nature of teaching, I'm just going to throw it out there. The nature of teaching, like it's it's repetitive because we see our students are transitory. They come in, they learn, hopefully, they reach a certain language goal and then they leave. And then during that process or after, we have new people that come in, varying points in their proficiency, and we do the same thing with them. So it's very repetitive in nature. And I think that it's going to get very stale because if you teach the same lesson 100 times, then it's going to be the same lesson 100 times. And I don't know if the 100th student is getting the same experience as the 5th student that saw it. That's what I'm trying to get at. Is like if you've done it so many times, are you just overly comfortable with it? And is it still as effective for your students as the first few times that you did it because you were paying more attention because it was something that was a little bit new? Let me give you an example. Let's say you've got a book or you follow a book or you have a material prepared for, oh God, everybody goes through past simple, right? Like we have to teach past simple to everybody. So at some point, right? Okay, so past simple, right? And you've done this lesson multiple times, hundreds of times even. Is that 100th student that you're teaching, are they getting the same experience as the ones when you first prepared it? Does it have the same energy? Does it have the same emotion? Does it have the same motivation for them to engage in the materials? Or is it just a little like, meh, blah? Because you've done it over and over again. That's what I'm saying. So exploring more advanced or different teaching methods, I think might help with some of these types of problems. So if you've got past simple, because we all have to teach past simple to students at some point in their careers, right? Wouldn't it be nice to have like a little library of lessons? So I'm going to teach past simple and I have these 5 different contexts. Same lesson structure, but I've just contextualized it in 5 different scenarios. Because one scenario might be more motivating for a student than another. Fine. And then you've got these 5 different scenarios. And then you look at the different scenarios and say, okay, well, all of these are being taught. And I know it's demonized and I've spoken up against the demonization of PPP, but okay. All of these are being taught in the PPP framework. Well, can I take 2 of them and make them guided discovery? Can I take another one and make it TTT, test, teach, test? Can I take another one and make it TBL based, weekend or strong end TBL? And could I take another one and do a situational approach with it? Because then, instead of one lesson that you always teach that has the same, the same way of doing it, which might not necessarily be bad, but might not cater to all the different students that you have. Then you've got 10 options because you've got different contexts, different frameworks, different methods, different techniques, right? So you got all these different little options in your library. I think as a teacher, if I have options, I'm very much excited about, I have to teach past simple, but this one I think is going to be much better for this person because this person likes da-da-da, or this person needs a little bit of a challenge, or I think guided discovery is going to be kind of like a fun little adaptation for them. See what I mean? I might not be right, but I think maybe that would be good service to the students, trying to adapt things and having different, and then of course you adapt them to individual people as you deliver the lessons, right? Like not every lesson is the same, but now you have not every lesson is the same because you adapt it to individual personalities, but also you have like a little library for yourself of these are all the different ways that I can teach this. And you shouldn't do this immediately. This is not a recommendation like in one weekend, the expectation is you make hundreds and hundreds of lesson plans. Ridiculous. Throw that idea out. Is that every time you go to teach something that you have to teach everybody because everybody kind of passes through that phase in their courses, looking at something and saying, can I modify this? And you might not have to modify it for that specific student, but it's like a little reminder like, I only have this one variation of this lesson. What could I get a different one? And if I could, what would be an interesting one? Just thoughts. So I think that sometimes we do hit a teaching plateau. I think it's because we're told multiple times to focus on our strengths and to always lean into our strengths. But I think we should lean into our weaknesses. And I think we should look at things that we are not comfortable with because that's where we're going to have maximum growth as professionals. And I think that because if we're looking into something and we're growing and we're trying to kind of figure it out and it's a little more engaging for us, I think that turns into motivating classes for learners. I think that students feel when we're kind of excited about things. Students very much pick up on our vibe of the day, I guess you can say, in the class. They pick up on our energy and like if we're excited to be there or not. Like my students know if I'm having a bad day. I mean, I try to put on a happy face, but my students know if I'm having a good day, a bad day, because they know they've been with me for a while. They can pick it up. So I think that if we're motivated or we're interested or we're super engaged because we're trying something new and seeing how effective it is for our students, I think that that's actually very, very beneficial for them because it motivates them to try and to engage more. So that's my, well, this new limit of like super short podcasts, I think I'm going to do well with it. But that's my little tidbit for today. Find something that you're not good at and do that because you're going to grow more doing that. So I will be back sometime soon with more for you. Thanks so much. See you soon. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Real Talk and ELT. Want to join the conversation? Head on over to Instagram at Kelly Pettington ELT and send me a message. Be sure to subscribe to my YouTube or Spotify channel to stay up to date. And of course, take care of yourself, your health, your vibe, and your tribe. Until next time.